Hey everyone, it's your dynamic host Marcus Norman of the Gentleman Style Podcast Show, and today we are interviewing this very special lady, this incredible woman. She is here to help us. This is a topic I've wanted to speak on and find an expert in the space to speak on how to do homeschooling, how to do homeschooling the right way, how to do homeschooling on a budget and not lose your shirt and not lose your job and not sacrifice all the things that the myths have told us and she is here on the Gentleman Style Podcast stage today to help us debunk those myths. Miss Linsey Knerl is a mom of 6 who has been homeschooling since 2000. For her interest in small business entrepreneurship led her down the path of writing a career plan that complemented her own homeschool lifestyle. And so she's here today on the Gentleman Styles Podcast to what I like to call spill the tea. And coincidentally, she's drinking tea. We love tea on this show. And so help me welcome, without further ado, Miss Linsey Knerl. Welcome.
Hi.
How are you, ma'am? How are you?
Good. You know, it's a beautiful day here in Nebraska, and I'm alive and well. So, good day.
That is a great day. Especially in Nebraska. No, I'm just kidding. Yep. But I appreciate you, Miss Knerl, for making time today. This is a very profound conversation, and this conversation can go so many paths. But I want to start with something simple and something easy. Is what first got you interested? I feel like there's a story here. What happened that stoked the fires and stoked your interest in wanting to start a homeschooling curriculum for your household? Was it child number 1, child number 2? What happened? Were you disappointed with the current Western education school system? What occurred? Can you share, please?
Yeah. I think for a lot of people, it's a combination of things, and then there's one thing that just kind of like pushes you over um, to the decision, right? So my husband and I were starting a family. We had a young 4-year-old child at home. We didn't love the idea of preschool. We kind of felt like there were a lot of the things that we were already doing in our household, reading, playing, just that seemed like we didn't need to do that. And then at the time we were both working kind of shift work jobs where one of us was always home with the children. So we were moving a bit. We were not real comfortable putting our kids in a preschool for just a few months and then having to, pull them up and start all over again. And then we also didn't have the best I would say social experiences in our schools. Both growing up, we felt a lot of bullying. We felt a lot of maybe not programs that fit our unique learning needs. And so all these things just kind of came together to where we thought, you know what? We have a small child. There's really no reason to do the school if we can do it at home. Nebraska had pretty flexible laws. We thought we'll try this 1 year, see what happens. And what happened is we ended up just really loving the time with our child. And then as we continue to add children, we have 6 total, 5 of them boys. We realized that for boys in particular, it was just kind of a no-brainer. They were really, really thriving. And we thought as long as this works, we're going to keep doing it. And it still works.
Absolutely. I love that. And you're speaking to something, that I'm now starting to believe that boys and traditional schooling is not very conducive for young men. It's not very conducive for young boys, right? And the philosophy and the mindset and what they say is, imagine going to a classroom. I remember going to a classroom today for me, just like what you and your husband may have experienced something similar is, sit down, sit still, be quiet. Don't, hush, raise your hand. You just described a young girl, right? Women mature faster than boys. And so with boys, they need to run, they need to play, they need to jump. If you look at the data says when you look at schools where it's just boys, they need twice as much recess, they need twice as much activity, they need twice as much time to run around and play versus an all-girls school. And so you are speaking to something that is amazing, because the only other option for boys is homeschooling. Well, not many people feel that they can do it or afford it. And so, you mentioned your husband, but I want to ask the question: is there a possibility for a single mother, a single parent, to still homeschool her children? Is there any chances or budget friendly option for her?
Yeah, so you have two things going into the cost. You have the child care, which is probably the most expensive, or at least the most stressful part of trying to figure that out. And then you have the cost of the curriculum. And for small children, especially, some good books, some good things you can borrow from the library will make up a lot of what you might need at that age. And so that's not where your cost is. The cost is in trying to figure out how you can work if you need to, and also be there with your child. A lot of the people that I interviewed for my book were military, single parents. They were, doing shift work. They were starting their own businesses, and they found they really did need a lot of help from either a family member or, a good friend or a neighbor to be able to fill that childcare need if you don't have the ability to work from home and be with your child at the same time. But I think what we're finding is that just as you try to figure out how to make it work during the summer or Christmas break or a bad weather day where they just cancel school and now all of a sudden you're trying to figure out what to do with your child, some of those same strategies can be implemented long term so that your child is both safe and cared for and educated the way that you think would be best for them. So there's no like single right answer, but what I'm saying is a lot of really savvy people who did not think they had what it takes figured it out. And that's just a testament to how a lot of these homeschoolers are really great parents that just kind of said, we'll do what we need to do.
Absolutely. Can you share one example? So I'm thinking. So if I'm a single parent, I'm not a single parent, but if I'm a single parent, can you give me how I can structure what can one thing, one piece of advice I could do to set my child up for a homeschooling environment while maintaining my job? Are you saying it's better when I have the option to work from home virtually, or is it not feasible at all if I have to go to a traditional 9 to 5?
Yeah, it's feasible, and I was a single parent before I met my husband. Actually, when we got married, she was 4. We started our life together, and it was me working overnights or working restaurant work till 2, 3 a.m. She was home with a grandparent, sleeping, and then when I would come home from my shift work, I would do part of my sleeping, right? Then I would get up, then we'd do some school together. We would have meals together. I maybe would have another family member come over and I'd take a nap. It was kind of that, just making it work, that grind. And it wasn't easy. I don't want anyone to get the impression, as a single parent especially, nothing is easy. So adding in homeschooling may not always work, but there were a lot of times where I was home with my child after doing a shift, and I was kind of tired, and I was putting her in front of Blue's Clues for 3 or 4 hours. And today that time could have been spent doing an online learning program, or playing nicely beside me while I, got a little rest. It just seems like it's not the 8 to 10 hours that we envision with school each day for a child that age. It's, 2 to 3 hours of real learning, and the rest is a lot of play. And a grandparent or a neighbor or a family member can actually do the instruction time too if you find that you just, between sleeping and working, don't have a lot of that. But yeah, you'll have to ask for help. I mean, that is a given.
That's a given. Absolutely, can't avoid that. Did you pay grandma or grandpa with a friend, or no?
I had a lovely a mother-in-law, or she was always babysitting and was really great for us at the time. We lived really very close, and we took advantage of that. As we moved, and I got married with my now husband of 22 years, we did not have that same support system, and that's when we really relied on each other. He would do shift work, I would do shift work, and we just made sure that one of us was always home, which led for, a little bit of strain trying to figure out how to always be together with your husband, but the kids were really a priority for us. We wanted to make sure they were home and they were safe, and that they were being educated in a way that I think was best for our boys.
Absolutely. So if I'm tracking, because I'm
Mhm.
trying to track, because I'm cheating. The
Sure.
beauty of podcasting, right, is I get to cheat a little bit. So you work from, let's say, 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. at the night job, and then you get off shift at two a.m. in the morning, sleep maybe till 6, 5, 8 o'clock till it's time to get the boys up for school,
Mm.
and then you start the curriculum. Now it's kids are in session, classes in session. Set them up with maybe some Spanish, set them up with some English, some math, and then outside activity, some playtime, up until it's now time for you to now transition back to work, and
Yeah, yeah, it can also
or get a nap in between. Get
yeah,
that friend to come over, steal another nap right before work, and play
yeah.
with the boys. Okay.
Definitely. And then, there are some homeschool options when you talk about this too later that are more co-op centered. They aren't all drop off, but there are some that are drop off where you can kind of put your kid in like a little learning pod where they can do some things with their peers that gives you a chance to rest or catch up or whatever you need to do. And there's usually a small cost associated with that. But the understanding is it's still considered homeschool because you are, the curator and also kind of the superintendent. You oversee what your child does. So homeschooling doesn't necessarily have to be you as the teacher. I think modern homeschooling is more you as the curator. So you decide what experiences they have, when they have them, how that fits into your work and your life. You're kind of engineering their education, and that may mean, during a season of life where you're working a lot, you don't do a lot of the instruction, and that's okay. I don't want anyone to think that if you're not the person doing all of it, that you're not a true homeschooler, especially as kids get into high school. It's just not feasible to think that I'm going to sit and do calculus and Spanish and all these things, right? I have a child learning Russian. No way am I going to stay up the night before and learn the lesson and then turn around and teach him. That's silly. And also, he's not getting a really great education if we do it that way.
So this is profound. That's profound. And I really want to stick here for a second. I really want to nail the coffin in, because you're debunking a myth right now that a lot of people feel I can't do homeschooling because I'm not strong in math. I'm not strong in another language. I'm not good in Spanish. Well, you can outsource the portions that you're not strong or confident in. I can do art class. I can do physical. I can do gym, right? I can do English to a certain degree. I can do so what parents, I want them to hear this, is that you don't have to do it all. The parts that you are strong and the parts that you are confident in, I can do lunchtime. I love to eat. I can do snack time, right? But I can now curate this menu versus, whereas the school system does it and they have kind of that predetermined menu. It's pizza, Taco Tuesday. I can curate this menu, and now I can facilitate and say it's lunchtime, y'all. Come and eat. And I can say, here's snacks, here's some juice boxes, here's some healthier options, here's an apple, here's some healthier options. And so the parts that I'm not good at, I can hire for. And
Yeah.
that's powerful.
And
Is
it's
that
not, yeah, and not even the things you're not good at. You may just not have the time, and you may not have the passion. I think one of the great things about homeschooling that I'm starting to realize, kind of our evolution from when we started with the workbooks that came out from the homeschool publishing companies that were very much the same workbooks they would use in private schools, right? They weren't really adaptable to the individual student. Is we're finding that they were kind of boring, some of them. And I wasn't passionate about the subject, and I was just kind of going through the motions. Now that we have things like online and virtual and in-person co-ops and tutors and some of these other things, my child can learn art from a very accomplished art teacher that has had years of experience and has traveled all over the world and is passionate and can kind of like transfer that passion to my son, who may not otherwise really enjoy sitting in a classroom. And I think when we have those transfers of passion from experts in their field to these young, especially male students, it really grabs their attention in a way that they might not get otherwise. And I think it can be the game changer for helping them continue on their education, graduate, and stay out of trouble.
I love this. I love it. This is tea, y'all. See, she just took a sip of tea, y'all. This is epic. You brought it up. I want to talk about budgeting and money and
Mhm.
and expenses. There's a myth. I need your help debunking right now. There's a myth that do you believe the more money I spend on the curriculum, the more advantage or better off my child Is that true or false? Should I spend as a parent, um, and I want to spend XYZ dollars because I want my child to get the best education, as we all want. But is that true or is that completely false?
Well, it's like anything else. It's not about price, it's about value. And I kind of talk about as like the three-legged stool. So for homeschool curriculum, you can have things that are easy to facilitate, which might be important if you're a working parent. You can have things that are really high quality, and you can have things that are cheap. And usually you can't get all three of those in the same package. So for me, a working parent who really values high quality, rigorous education materials, I'm probably not going to get them very affordably versus some cheap consumable workbooks that I have to do all of the work myself, but they also might be very high quality. So you're kind of mixing and matching and figuring out which two of the three are non negotiable for your family. And that means you will probably spend more in some instances, but I think you can look for all sorts of ways to save money. One is just shopping around, shopping sales. There's buy one, get ones, Black Friday. These publishers and curriculum providers are just business people. They want to sell their product, and they'll do all sorts of things to have you try out their product and buy it. And the other thing is, there's a lot of companies that let you reuse the materials and even the videos if you purchase video instruction to reuse with family members again and again. So if you do have a larger family like myself and you buy a more expensive video course for one child, if you can get five more uses out of that, that's going to give you incredible value compared to maybe a cheaper a video or workbook that you can just use the one time.
You are speaking to my pockets. I'm a bargain bin shopper. My girl is a bargain. We are bargain bin shoppers. So I didn't even know that was an option, right? I don't have to get brand new. It's kind of like the same thing with clothes, right? If it's moderately worn, I don't need to. If I have one child, right, and it's a boy, and I have another boy, I don't need to go buy that second boy new
Right.
clothes. If they're here you go, son. Here's your pajamas.
Right.
That's your older
Pajamas,
brother.
especially. Yes. Those
So the
poor
same thing.
pajamas.
So the same thing. The curriculum isn't outdated. The curriculum is moderately used, or it's still in date. Hey, let me connect with other groups and let me connect with other resources. Tap into Miss Knerl and her page, and she may be even able to help you connect with some resources and say, hey, this is where you can get some bargain bin curriculum items that are still relevant today. And you don't have to go get brand new material all over again for each child.
Well,
So,
think about those sad textbooks we had in high school. Do you remember those sad
oh,
textbooks with all the names in the front, and they were so worn and they were so old, and that's
the
okay.
spine is gone.
Yeah, so don't, I don't know why we think we can't reuse stuff.
So there's a limit. There's a limit, y'all. This is huge, 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 huge. This is I want to touch on the next subject of boys. Right? We touched on it earlier, where boys can be a little bit more intense, a little bit more. They need a little bit more love, love and support. Can you talk on what's it like and in homeschooling boys, and how do you handle boys' energy and distractions in a homeschool environment?
Yeah. So, we have few rules in our house, very few rules, and they're mostly with how we relate to one another. So, we don't allow any of our children to bully or demean or be mean or hurt or, um, be cruel to one another. We don't allow any of that. And beyond that, we have very few rules for physicality. So they can jump and they can run and they can, but we also have outside area. The number of times when our children were very young and they were starting to act out, and my husband said, "Go take a run around the house," and they would have to run physically around the house, rain or shine. Just one, as it's like doing laps, right? If you were in gym class, do laps. But also, there's kind of this like mind reset when they get out into nature, see the sunshine, feel the air, and it kind of pulls them out of whatever it was that they were in. So it shifts that. Also for me, usually at the time my husband's sending them outside, I'm kind of at my limit, or maybe he's at his limit. That gives us a little space to kind of go, okay, take a breath, get some coffee. Let's just take it down a little. In school, 30 kids crammed into a room. That poor teacher, she's not getting that space. The student isn't getting that space. And it just kind of feels like a pressure cooker situation, especially
Yes.
for young men. And I like that we have the freedom to not let it get to that point.
I love that. I love that snippet that your husband does. He's like, go outside and play. Go outside and run a lap and go do some exercise. Get and like you said, it's a reset for boys. Like, okay, I got my vitamin D, I got some sun, I'm huffing, I'm puffing, I'm a little winded. Okay, now pay attention to the chalkboard. Now that I got you tired and settled in and got that burst of energy out, what's one plus one? Let's get back to that reset. So super powerful, powerful, powerful. And the fact that you and your husband tag team in that way, you guys can swap energies. Hey, I'm feeling really low. Can you take them
Right.
for next class or next session or next assignment? Or man, I can't wait till that Spanish teacher gets here or the piano teacher gets here because I really need that break because that's so powerful. You constantly shift, and the boys don't know any different.
Right.
They have no idea that they're being hustled. I'm sorry to say it that way, but it's true, and that's super super powerful. I want to debunk another myth. There's the myth of homeschooling causes a disparity in how boys develop and how, well, not just boys, but how kids can socialize because now they're lacking social skills, and there is some proof, right? So with the science behind an unpotty trained baby, right? It's been proven that it's very beneficial for a baby to be around its peers, much older peers who are potty trained, because once that baby is seeing how they're doing it, they're gonna try and mimic it, and then ultimately end up potty trained themselves. And so there is benefit to being among other socially, other people socially, but how do you homeschool and how do you homeschool your boys and ensure your boys develop proper social skills?
Sure. Well, first of all, you know who else is potty trained? Hopefully, mom and dad. So there is kind
Yes.
of that that
Yes.
kind of like leveling up that can happen. For example, like I don't talk baby talk to my children. It's just something that never felt comfortable for me. Um, Being around adults and parents has advantages, but you're right, they do need some socialization. And I think actually potty training was handled by my older boys just because they have the hardware and they kind of know the logistics of all that stuff. And so they were like, Mom, let me handle this, right? So I was very, very thankful when my boys become teens and could kind of help with the younger siblings. But I think there's two issues. One, what do we consider socialization? And is some of that socialization that we see when we're reading the Facebook comments things I even want for my kids?
Mm.
It's like, oh, they haven't done this and they haven't done this and they haven't done this. Are all those things good or even necessary? There are some rites of passage that we do in public schools that may or may not be a thing the kid even has to do. If your family isn't comfortable with sleepovers, for example, you don't have to do sleepovers. Or if your family isn't comfortable with a certain sport or a certain class, like you don't have to do that. So socialization doesn't just happen according to those kind of rites of passage we talk about in the public school context. But if you do want your child to, let's say, do the proms and do senior skip day or any of these things that we kind of talk about as socialization, they have an alternative, a homeschool alternative for everything under the sun. My kids did prom, some of them opted out. My kids have done volleyball and speech and debate and science labs and vocal and you name it. There is a homeschool alternative right now, probably within 30 minutes, that you can take your child to, and they're going to get all of that. Except parents are putting it on and volunteering and making sure it runs. And with that comes some supervision that maybe you're not going to get in the public school version. Now, all this to say, there are some really difficult children in homeschool settings as well. It's not totally protected, but your kid is going to get a chance to do all the things and not only interact with children of their own age, but interact with other adults and elderly and babies and infants and younger siblings and kind of develop a more holistic view of how do I interact in the world. And actually, I think it's proven here recently to be a little bit more well-rounded than what you get with just the peer-to-peer interaction and development.
I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. I want to stick right here for another second, and I want to just again be selfish for a minute
Mhm.
and speak on the advantages of your husband and how do you guys define your roles when it comes to homeschooling your kids? What is his role? What is your role? And how do fathers play a role in homeschooling boys compared to mothers? Because I think and I feel, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that homeschooling feels like a feminine activity. And some men feel, well, that's why she's staying at home. That's why my wife is staying at home, not even realizing to the depth that women can experience still burnout, right? And
Yeah.
she still can be tired. She still can be exhausted as if she was working a traditional 9 to 5 because homeschooling is a 9 to 5. And so, how does your kid's father play a role in a homeschooling environment compared to mothers? Can you speak on that and speak to the women and the significance to that?
Yeah. So this is kind of a difficult question, not because it bothers me or I don't have the answer, but because it just really speaks to the fact that most homeschooling problems are going to be parenting problems or marriage problems. The decisions that you make as a parent are going to translate directly into how you teach your child. If you have a problem disciplining your child in just the day to day, you're going to have a really hard time getting them to sit and listen to you and respect you as you teach them. And likewise, if you and your spouse don't have an understanding of the roles that you have, or that's something that's always been a little difficult to define, that is going to also translate into homeschool. Whose job is this? How does this work? And I've even seen families where they've been homeschooling for years, but the spouse, the husband hasn't really been on board, and you can tell, because of just the mom feeling like she's doing it all. Not that he couldn't have helped, but there just maybe wasn't a like-mindedness that I really think is necessary, in the home. I think that if you're struggling with roles as a husband and a wife, which that's a topic for a whole nother day, and every church and every home kind of has their own idea of what's right and wrong. You're going to see some of those lines blur a little bit with the homeschooling because I don't know if you've heard this, like maybe you've taken your kids somewhere and people have said, "Oh, you're babysitting for the day." And it always used to make my husband so mad. He's like, "I'm not babysitting, I'm parenting. These are my children." Um,
Mm.
but he was often the one that would drive the kids to sports or sit with the kids because he had a weekend and night job that wasn't as visible, and my job was the 9 to 5 during the day, and so he would take the children a lot of places. I think this is something where if you're going to homeschool, you need to sit down kind of early on and say, okay, here are our roles. For moms who are kind of already stretched, be like, look, I'm the administrator and the cook and the cleaner and the transportation and all these things. And now you also want me to teach. Where's the give? Like, be real honest in the onset that this is another thing. Then also realize this is also parenting. So dad can jump in. In our house, I'm not the math person. I don't feel comfortable with it. I did well in school, but I feel like I have to relearn it all over again. He looks at algebra and he's like, "Oh yeah, like it was yesterday." So if there's a math question, go to your dad. It's if dad's not home because he's out doing something, wait till your dad gets home. You have that flexibility. If it's language or arts, that's definitely me. And we fill in the gaps with experts as needed. But I think it's both an understanding of your existing roles in the home and how this is just going to be expanded with the homeschooling. And then maybe including dad in a couple of subjects that he can kind of be the manager of, because one, I think it's really rewarding for the kids to see dad in that way. It brings kind of a nice respect and just a way to say, hey, dad's more than just the guy that does this and brings home the check and,
Yes.
wrestles on the couch and, like he knows things and he's learned things and he has experience. And I think that's a great way to elevate dad's role in the family. But also, kids are going to be dads maybe someday. And what you model now is just going to give them maybe even more tools in their toolkit for when they have their own families. I think this is a great opportunity for dads.
Oh, oh, my heart is singing. You just said something that I think more people need to hear, right? Where you said, your husband would hear, "Oh, you babysitting for the day?" "No, I'm taking care of my children," right? And he's involved, right? He's involved in active parenting. He's there, he's supporting, and he's engaging, and his kids are seeing him, and they're seeing him, and men are not just this omnipresent being, right? It's not, I think I have a dad because I see pictures around the house, but he's always working because he's bringing home the bacon. No, dads he's active, he's engaged. I know who he is. We talk, we have family time. I can go to him for when I need math issues, when I have boy issues. And I know when dad is going to be home, and dad makes time for me. And what you said is just so significant, man, because I really want to push back. Hence why I asked you the question. So you nailed it on the head, on the head. Dads being present is crucial, and there's this kind of stigma that I want to die off of, as long as the check's clear and money's in the bank account, dad don't have to be here. And men, I want y'all to hear that too, that y'all need to be engaged. I think we miss so many opportunities when we just sit the boys down or the girls down in front of Blue's Clues or Peppa Pig, right? We're missing opportunities. One of the biggest things I hate to hear parents say, especially when it comes around money. My background is finance, and so one of the things we miss out on is, how do you teach your kids finance? "Oh, well, they're working, they have jobs, but I just tell them put it all in savings." You are missing a crucial conversation, and you're skipping it, versus having the hard conversation and the more difficult conversation, because we mimic what we were taught. Your parents probably didn't have, not Miss Neural, but I'm speaking to the audience on a big global scale. You may not have had the money talk, and so we mimic what we were taught. So just keep money in savings. Anything you need, ask mom and dad. No, I need to have the conversation with you, no matter how uncomfortable it is, no matter how difficult it may seem. I may stumble through it, and you just tell your kids. Kids are more resilient than you could ever imagine. You just tell them, "Son, I'm going to struggle through this because I'm not the best at it. Your mom is good with the money, or vice versa. Hey, your father is good with the money. But we gonna have this conversation, and we're gonna fight through it because it's important and it matters." And so, whew, sorry, I was emotional. I was emotional. You hit the nail on the proverbial head. So thank you to speaking to that. I want to touch on managing time. And more specifically, how do you and your husband do it? Do you guys synchronize calendars? Do you guys have a little chalkboard or a little calendar on the refrigerator, and you guys mark down your day, so you know who has what or who's doing what, or when the music teacher is coming or when the Spanish teacher is coming? How do you guys run efficiently in a two-parent household to homeschool the kids?
Yeah, so I'm saying this as someone who right before the show just got a text from her husband that said, "I'm at the physical therapist you sent me to and my appointment's tomorrow." So I just want
Ooh.
to say, like, there's got to be a lot of grace in this whole thing, because I'm really good at like crossing the T's and dotting the I's, and sometimes I just mess it up. So a lot of it is just figuring out what the personality of the person requires. I'm so digital. I have the apps on my phone. I love checking the little boxes. I've got the Google, the Calendly, all that stuff, right? And my husband's just like, just give me the paper calendar and tell me where I need to be. And that works for us. Except on days like today where, we just kind of got out of handle. So we do that. I also try to like like at the beginning of each day, tell my kids, because they're teenagers, a lot of them now, and say, these are our priorities. What do you want to get done today? Because they're at that age where they're working on things, and they're like, oh, I really would like to study for this chemistry exam. I'd kind of like to do a little more algebra, whatever it is. They can tell me what their priorities are, since they're kind of managing a lot of that. And I tell them what we need to do as a family. And then, because I run my own business, I also communicate to them, okay, I've got a podcast at 3 and I need to meet with a client at 2, and I'm going to be running and doing a few research reports, and I need to be able to have some quiet time at this time. We just kind of, it's kind of like a war room where we sit down at the beginning of the day and we say, here's everybody's individual priorities. Can we make this work? And then with an understanding that, sorry, guy, we can't do it all, and mom and dad have to make money. So we're going to maybe not run you to your friend's house today, but you can obviously still do your science and your math. So there's this give and take, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it is really looking at how everybody operates. My younger kids, my 15 and unders, don't have cell phones. So we have to look at other ways to communicate, like Google Chat, or the landline. We call them the landline. And it's all me just on, you can hear on the voicemail machine, hello, this is your mother, please pick up, that sort of thing. So, it's finding what works, but we really do have to be at least connecting once a day. And then at the end of the week, like on a Sunday, say, okay, what are our big things we have coming up this week? And it's not real formal. We don't say family meeting at 6 p.m. in the lobby or anything like that. It's just like we're eating, and I say, oh, you know what? We should probably go over the things we're going to do this week. So as long as we talk about it, it doesn't have to be special time or place.
Or formal. This is epic. You see, y'all, that quick, right? That quick, she said it, right? Hey, she includes the boys. I can't stress this enough. Too many parents exclude their kids from these type of conversations because they want a kid to stay in a kid's place. But these kids are going to be adults one day. So involving them in the conversation and allowing them, what do you think you should do? What do you want to do today? What topics or subjects do you want to work on today? This is what mom and dad have going on with our schedules. They're involving them instead of excluding them and then catching the kids by surprise, throwing a bag over their head and then slamming them in the truck and then driving off to Spanish class. That that's not going to work, right? Involve your kids in these conversations. You're not, I promise you, kids are more resilient than you think. And we got to stop this whole thing of babying our kids and, oh, he's a teenager, he can understand I got stuff to do. Right? You want to eat tomorrow?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mommy and daddy have to go to work. Yeah.
And I think too, like if you're looking at college readiness, that's a must have. Like they're gonna get their schedule at the beginning of the school year, and no one's going to tell them how to break that all up and do it. They're going to have to figure it out. And if you're from a generation like I was, where you sat at the dinner table and you don't speak unless you're spoken to, and you don't talk because you're eating, and you kind of came from that culture, it can be a little bit of a hard shift. But just put yourself in that place and think, how much more valuable would you have felt as a child and a teen to have had been able to give input? I mean, this is homeschooling is not top down. It is really collaborative, or it just won't work.
I wish I had that conversation. I wish my parents had included me in these types of conversations sooner. And now I was thrown into things. I got glimpses, I got snippets, but I didn't get the in-depth conversation. And I wish to this very day that my parents had included me in those conversations, because those conversations would have prepared me better for life. And so powerful, powerful, powerful. I want to ask, how do you test? Do you and your husband test your kids against any standardized tests or any kind of, to see how they're tracking compared to Western education? Do you perform tests on the kids to see if they're ahead, if they're on track, or they're behind in particular subject areas?
Yeah, so we have a couple of kids with some different learning needs, one with dyslexia and dysgraphia, who started reading a lot later. And so we haven't used some of the traditional tests. We've kind of tested him to watch him progress. He's actually on track to go to college. He's been doing amazing through hard work and just really taking it seriously. But that was something we kind of looked at him individually and looked at the progress being made, and we enlisted help with experts when we felt like, okay, we're not really sure what the next steps might be. But we also do standardized testing for college entrance. A lot of the colleges are all over the place. Some require tests, some don't. We start using what we call the CLT. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a classic learning test. It's an alternative to the ACT and the SAT, and it's not accepted by all colleges, but it's really gaining ground in some of the private and liberal arts schools. And what I liked about this test, even if you're going to use an ACT or an SAT for college entrance formally, is it uses a more critical thinking lens to have the kids read certain passages and get their understanding. So you can use those as early as 7th, 8th grade and progressively take them throughout their junior high school career to see, okay, are they grasping the math? Are they grasping logic? Are they understanding grammar? But it's in a more literature rich context than simply these kind of random texts that you might get in like an ACT or an SAT. So I really liked it for my children. They're done online, so they're very accessible to families that don't live close to a school or a city, and they are very affordable too. So we've kind of used those as our standardized test. Your state may require something completely different, so please be sure to check with your Department of Ed. But the CLT has been one that we've really found works well for our family.
Love it. Love it. Love it. I love this. She is good, y'all. We are going, speaking of being good, we have to go to a quick commercial break. We got to pay some bills, y'all. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Hey, guys, this is your boy Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And we are here in Patrick Henry Mall, Newport News, Virginia. We're actually here for something unique just inside. Something new, brand new that we want to explore together. You guys ready? All right, here we go. Hey, boss. Heard you are an athlete, man. See you at the mall every day. We are at Patrick Henry Mall, living up, and we are talking about CBD. But first off, the normal thing that we all deal with is joint pain, back pain, suffer from everything.
Neck pain, too.
Neck pain? You got some neck pain?
All the time, man. I'm getting up in age, you know what I'm saying? We're not young no more.
I'm with you. I'm totally with you. Bruh, CBD helps with the exact same thing. Neck pain, back pain, joint pain, all the pains, everywhere pain, right? And so that's what CBD does. That's what we're here to help you and me do. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you.
Thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
All right.
CBD is one of the most powerful cannabinoids because all it's focused on is the health and wellness. We're talking helping people with anxiety, depression, insomnia, sleep deprivation, all provided. CBD works with the natural mechanics of your body without the crazy side effects of Western medicine. So these products are here to actually align your body and get it back right so we can actually have a better quality of life. And that's what CBD does.
Baby Gear Services DMV specializes in high-quality baby gear rentals in the Maryland and DC metro area. We have a wide range of baby gear items for rent, including wooden cribs, car seats, high chairs, and more. We also offer seasonal specials and free delivery. Our prices are very versatile to cover every budget. Wooden cribs start at $17 a day, high chairs and even car seats start at $5 a day. Check out our website, www.bgsdmv.com.
We are back. to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show, and we have the incredible Miss Linsey Knerl spilling the tea on homeschooling, things you, me, we can all do to take our homeschool to the next level. She has debunked some myths, some episode. When I tell you myths, she has debunked them episodes, and it actually is affordable. And you and I can do this. The traditional Western education is not cutting it anymore. Homeschooling is the way. I'm a firm believer in this. I'm a firm believer in Miss Knerl and what she's doing. And she's helping parents, whether single parent households or dual parent households, she's helping parents take it to the next level and find the avenues and find the resources and find the material to actually give their kids the real head start in life. And you can find her today on iHeartRadio, Apple iTunes, Spotify, Ghana, Facebook Business Page, even Audible. We are everywhere you get your podcast today, and you can check her out. Miss Knerl, I gotta ask, we just talked about testing, and you and your husband perform testing on the boys to see if the boys are on par, if they're falling behind in certain areas, or if they're ahead. And now you're preparing your kids for college level education. And you include your boys in the development of their own learning curriculum because they're at that age now. Very crucial, very powerful. I wanted to ask, I want you to debunk another myth. Whereas I heard this from another parent that homeschools their kids. And Western education almost punishes kids for not staying on par with their peers, right? So if they're in a classroom, a second grade, and they're not performing well, they hold you back or they have you restart that grade level. With homeschooling, and this parent said in homeschooling, if his child isn't strong or confident in a particular subject, it's okay. It's okay if he's not ready for that or she's not ready for that subject yet. We'll just approach it at a different time or a different age group. And because he does that, and he just switches up the curriculum, he adjusts the curriculum as necessary. Well, okay, you're not ready for math. You're not doing well with math. It's okay. Let's focus on what you are good at, and we'll come back to the math at a later time. Maybe when you're 7, maybe when you're, whatever. I'm throwing out age groups, but whatever. We can approach it later on. We don't have a set deadline and this push to keep you up with your peers, because your peers are mom and dad and your brothers and sisters. And so, can you help me if that's right? Is that wrong? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So what's interesting is the math that my family uses, the math curriculum, is called Math UC. It's created by Demo Learning, and it doesn't actually have like grades written on it. It's got names like gamma, alpha, delta, epsilon. The children don't know what quote unquote grade they're even in. You learn multiplication, and when you've mastered it, then you move on to division, and so on and so on and so on. And I think that way of teaching, or at least categorizing your students' learning, the state may ask that you put a grade on their paperwork that you file with the state if you have to, but the child doesn't need to, because they're not sitting with 30 other peers and marching and getting in line and asking to use the bathroom and all these other things.
Yeah.
That you don't do in the home. There really is no reason. Even think about high school. You're a 10th grader. Well, what does that mean? For one 10th grader, it may mean you're finally doing some kind of algebra 2 if you're gifted. Maybe you're doing consumer math. It's not something that you look at grade wise. So I would kind of try to take grades completely off the table if you can. And then, just speaking to boys in particular, they tend to ripen a little bit later than their female peers. And this is not always the case, but our boys learn to read quite a bit later. We didn't completely push it. There's some studies and books out there that kind of say that little thing inside their brain doesn't click until 7 at the earliest, some of them as late as 10. And as long as they're developing and in other ways naturally, and you're using like a phonics science-based program, that they'll eventually go beyond sounding out things painfully to reading and comprehending it and enjoying it. But that all happens at a different age for children. And by simply saying you're 7, you need to be able to do this. Why can't you do this? We're going to make you do this. I can't think of a better way to make sure boys hate reading. And we know that literacy directly translates into how well they do later, keeping them away from addictions and keeping them out of, the prison system and all this stuff. It's just very important that literacy be part of their toolkit, and forcing it in a way that makes them hate it may not be the best approach.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you heard that, y'all. You don't have to force feed them. That you don't have to keep banging the drum. This is what school does. And for the life of me, again, nothing turns me off more than you keep harping on me. Oh, you got to get this because next week. I mean, talk about peer pressure. Talk about anxiety. Talk about ADHD. Right? Hey, Marcus, you need to learn this because next week we're moving on with or without you. Right? That is traumatic.
None of that. We don't have any of that. And you might be part of a co-op or a group that is having to track, and you may learn pretty quickly that's not right for your student. So that's something else to think of when you're working in communities or having tutors that are on a track that you can't get off of. So try to make it as individualized as you can, definitely.
Absolutely. Do you address your kids as students? Like, hey class, hey do you?
No, knuckleheads usually. I kind of, I kind of have some. I don't know. I think raising boys has been the best thing. It is fun. It is loud. It is just honest all the time. I get so much uh I don't know. It's 5 of the most passionate, incredible, talented, amazing people I've ever met. My daughter's great too, but the boys just have this energy that the more I do it, the more I realize homeschooling really can be the difference maker. Just seeing what they're capable of when they're allowed to just, you know, pedal to the metal, put their talent and their ingenuity to whatever they want to do outside of these little constructs. I really do. I think things are going to look really bright for a lot of the kids that are able to homeschool or work in these other independent learning environments. I really do.
Is there a big movement? Are you finding a lot of other parents are hopping on board the homeschooling train? And if you are, why? Why do you think that is?
Oh, all sorts of reasons. The things you see on the news, books and curriculum and all that, of course. But that is what maybe pulls people out of the school system. It's not what keeps you doing this day to day to day. It really just has to be seeing the possibilities and how with technology and connecting people through the internet. We have cars now. We're not like driving one day to the one room schoolhouse in our horse and buggy. Like, we have so few limits, and a lot of these resources are being made available for free or almost no cost. I mean, look at like Khan Academy. You could learn anything under the sun on that website. Study for your SATs, study for your MCATs. I mean, we have so few barriers to getting access to information. And if you can motivate your kids to get that and go for it, I just think it's going to change how we do everything.
Absolutely. Do you find that you're saving? Is there any savings that you're finding, whereas sending your children to a traditional school or a private school, where you would have to spend? I think the number is like $200-$300 per week, for like daycare and stuff like that. Do you find that there's any savings in homeschooling in that sense? Whereas they're home, I don't have to spend money on gas. They're eating groceries that we already paid for. I don't have to send them with additional growth. I don't have to buy extra to send them with snacks to school. Is there any savings to there?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely could be. I think a lot of the schools are moving to like a free breakfast, free lunch model. And for some families, that's a lifesaver. So you're going to have a higher grocery bill being at home with your kids. I think, but also you're making sure that they're eating, nutritious foods if you want to, and you could have some savings. health savings down the road. Also, you know your child and you're watching them. And so you can kind of be in tune to things instead of maybe sending them to the doctor for an ADD medication prescription that may or may not be right. You can kind of take your time and experiment with things in conjunction with your doctor, where maybe you wouldn't have the flexibility and the patience and the time to be able to do that in the public school setting, because things are really as slow as you want to take them. It opens up the doors for opportunities. With that opportunity definitely comes cost savings if you want it. And we are not doing every arbitrary craft project, PTA, bring the brownies, do this, do that. I mean, you can pick and choose what you want to do, and I think there's savings in that.
Absolutely. Do you find any? Can you share numbers? Any numbers, ranges of numbers of what you would spend, or what you can spend on hiring someone from the outside to handle those courses, like we mentioned earlier? Um, can you share a range of what to expect money wise, if I hire a math teacher, if I hire a Spanish teacher, if I hire an arts teacher, a music teacher, a range of what to set aside a budget for?
Mhm. Well, there are platforms like, oh gosh, Coursera and some of these other places, and you can buy courses with the live component. There are some strictly homeschool geared courses that my children take that are live, or they have a tutor component that are anywhere from a couple of $100 all the way up to $700 a course if it's like a very intense, art or Latin or history or something where you're getting several live hours a day with a teacher. But otherwise, you might have someone in your community that just is joyful giving instruction to young people, and they, for $15 to $30 an hour, would sit and do cello lessons or would sit with a group of kids. So look around. I think that average is $600 per child per year for homeschool costs. That's a little low for like high school kids that have a lot of activities, and it's super high for like, a 5 to 10-year-old who just needs some workbooks. Um, it's really going to range, but I would say that if you want a live component, you're going to be spending maybe up to $1,000 a year on a few courses for that live component or that tutor.
That's fair. That's fair. This has been an epic conversation. This is absolutely necessary. Ms. Knerl, you are absolutely powerful. You have shared so many nuggets this episode, so many gems this episode, and I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you.
Absolutely. If you had one more nugget, if you had one more nugget in the hat, are there any hidden sacrifices when choosing homeschooling that parents should be aware of? Any last nuggets that you want to say, hey, just be mindful of this?
Yeah, your kids are going to be home with you, and they are going to then depend on you for a lot, which is great. But take that time. I'm going to get a hotel room with my husband here in a couple days. We're going to go away 24 hours at just the next town. You have to carve out that little bit of time, so you can be a better parent and a better teacher to your kids.
Love it, love it, love it. We gotta let this incredible lady, the Gentleman Style Podcast mascot loves it. We gotta let this incredible lady go. But how can people connect with you? How can people find you and learn more?
Yeah, so I'm at linseyknerl.com. I'm on Twitter at lknerl and Instagram at lknerl. Those are probably the best ways to find me.
Absolutely. Connect, y'all. She is changing lives and helping you, me, we do better with our kids. We got to let this incredible lady go. She got many more lives to change and many more families to impact. But like we end every show, take care of your friends, take care of your family, and always, always take care of business. This is Marcus, your favorite gentleman, and the incredible, super fragilistic, espialidocious Miss Linsey Knerl signing off. Love you guys.